Chris, do you see that?
No. Yes. What am I looking for?
It's another four-legged fan edit.
They know you're here.
This time we're jumping into 2049, Blade Runner, strike that, reverse it. And yes, it's the follow-up to the original 1982 Blade Runner. It is a very beautiful movie. It was my first time watching it. There were a lot of complaints about how long it was, and so Chris dove in there and chopped it up and gave us a different look at it.
Not much else to do around here at night anymore.
If you're a replicant that dreams of unicorns and us in your head, please like, subscribe, hit the bell notification.
I think people who were gonna love that movie loved the movie. There was, it was so true to the original Blade Runner, which I'm like literally obsessed. Like, I don't own a lot of physical copies of movies, but I own some physical copies of these, literally all 5 versions of it.
Okay.
Just saying,
okay.
I like my Blade Runner.
Nerd alert!
I think it was legitimate that like the movie ends up being 2 hours and 45-ish minutes, and it's a slow burn detective noir kind of thing. Yeah. And so I can understand that, it did not make big buku bucks at the box office. I think partly because people were like, what? It's like Blade Runner, but it's 2 hours and 45 minutes? Because there's already people who were like, the original Blade Runner was also pretty slow, even at the time. Like, it wasn't even in the 80s. People were like, well, this is a fast-paced romp. It's like, it's a slow...
And they did not break tradition.
Did not break tradition. And so what I decided to try to do was just tighten it up. And I thought about different ways, but what I came up with was remove joy. This is the joyless edit of Blade Runner 2049.
Before we get going, heavy spoilers from here on out on 2049, the original Blade Runner. If you haven't seen original Blade Runner, what are you doing?
With your
Go
life,
watch it.
what do you go?
Attaboy.
In 2049, there is very little happiness or hope in that movie. It is devoid of that, but it tries to find it, which is kind of the point towards the end. However, the only uplifting thing is Ana de Armas's character and her interaction with Ryan Gosling, so...
Here's what I'm gonna say, and this is gonna be like, wow, I'm really inspired to watch your fan edit. I'm not gonna claim that this makes the movie better. It really doesn't. What it does is it makes
They're clamoring now.
Yeah, I'm like, whoa, I gotta check this out. It makes it shorter, and it also is it's almost like a more nihilistic movie, because the Joy character is kind of almost Kay's connection to humanity, despite the fact that she's an AI. She gives him the ability to have this like pretense of a normal life, like
a meaning,
something that he's trying to to connect himself to.
I always told you, you're special.
You remove that, and suddenly Kay is very adrift.
Kafka-esque.
Yeah, and it does make it so you as an audience actually have to do a lot of inferring of what his motivations are, because Joy is kind of his like little, I don't know, Tinkerbell or something. She's like guiding him on the journey and telling him like, oh, well, we should really do this, or we should, and that's now gone. So now it's really just him solely driven by this job and this purpose of, detectiving and getting to the bottom of things. And, in the end, like, it's no longer, there's kind of that last shot of her, and it's not really her, it's just the giant billboard. Is he feeling this cynicism of like, well, there was never any real my Joy, it's just like, I don't have a purpose, I need to go and rescue Harrison Ford, You don't have this anymore. Like, it's just really like, he's just driven by that sole purpose the entire time. So it's interesting as a sort of storytelling thought experiment of what happens when you kind of remove the narrator. She's kind of almost she's his internal monologue, and that's gone now.
She's kind of the audience, because the problem with Blade Runner, let's call it the Blade Runner EU. The Blade Runner universe is human beings acting like robots and robots acting a little bit more like human beings, but still being robots. So everyone's a little bit stoic. Everyone's a little bit too dry as it is. So Joy is really making the best of the situation or trying to figure out some hope. where there isn't much of any.
And now there's even less, and that is why it is called the JOI-less Cut, which I am very happy at how it turned out. I had to do some real playful things. The scene where Mackenzie Davis, like this sort of, you know, prostitute but really spy, like shows up at his place. I had to like really, I still want to keep the scene because she has to get there and she has to drop the tracker thing so that they can find him later, and there's just all these plot elements. And you can kind of infer that, like, well, they had this interaction and there's some curiosity there, so maybe she found him, followed him, see where he lives, you know, like, you can kind of infer those things.
But you have a throuple.
Yeah, you have a throuple that is just gone now. And so I really had to, like, find some other footage to cut away to be, it almost becomes this, like, 80s-esque sex scene where it's, like, it's inferred, and it's, like, it just cuts away to the exterior and, like, ooh, there.
You made it classy.
Okay. Let's do it.
There's moments like that that were a little bit, I had to play around with how things, you know, how things flowed, but I think that was the most difficult one. The rest of it, I was able to kind of just, you know, tighten things and make some transitions work and things. And again, I would love to hear what people think. If they think that you can follow the story, especially, spoiler, sorry, but if you haven't seen Blade Runner 2049 and you watch this and you're like, yeah, I didn't get it, like, I'd love to hear that. Give me some interesting information.
Let us know.
I want to ask you some questions.
I'm glad they didn't try to make 2049 like a different, newer, more modern, sensible movie. I'm sorry that it failed, but like I'm glad that it exists, you know, like in the way it exists.
But the original failed as well.
Exactly. This is what it's kind of funny of, like, you know, them rebooting it, you know, decades later. It's like the original one wasn't some huge smash success in the theaters. Like it wasn't until like 10 years later when they re-released it. I think people were finding the work print cut and were like, whoa, there's a different version. It was like before director's cuts were a thing.
Yeah.
And then they suddenly were like clamoring to like release a sort of director's cut. Like that's like this legacy of Blade Runner isn't like, oh, this massive box office success. It's like this like cult favorite, you know, that now is like, you know, you can't talk about sci-fi without talking about Blade Runner, but that really wasn't until the 90s. I am glad it exists because it's just the world building is just so incredible. And Dune coming up, you know, Denny is doing more. So I'm glad that didn't. It's not like it torpedoed his career. I think everybody recognized how talented he is as a director, and you know, like Arrival was so good, and Prisoners, a little lesser scene of his movies. There's so many good movies in his kind
Sicario.
Sicario,
a movie, unexpected movie. I did not realize it was going to be as good as it was.
Yeah, yes. He's like, I'm really excited. Like, I'm not some Dune super fan, but I'm excited to see, you know, that as well and see what he does.
I agree. Denis Villeneuve is amazing. Super fired up about Dune, mostly because the things he took from the original Blade Runner were the things he was supposed to take and put it in. Make a better mystery. Put actual detective work in. There's barely detective work in the first one, you know what I mean?
That's
like,
true.
actually get those sort of things going, keep the atmosphere. He learned the right lessons from the first movie, so I think he's gonna do the same thing with Dune and David Lynch's 1984 Dune, and you know, take the things that worked, make them work better, and get rid of the stuff that doesn't. I will tell him something he needs to improve on for Dune is make the font bigger. What is wrong with you? Is that artistic? I can't read the font. It's artistic.
I'm gonna make a prediction. We're gonna do a little review in the future of the Lynch Dune, and then when the Dune 2021 comes out, it did get pushed, right, to 2021. I'm pretty sure. I don't even know what's coming out when.
How long you been here?
Since 2020.
We're gonna definitely do a little back re-review and a little you know.
That's right.
Review.
And to punch it up even further, we do fan edits here and word on the streets, the internets. There is a fan edit of the David Lynch Dune that is supposed to be next level. It's supposed to bring it all together. So I am going to go scouring for that, and we are going to watch that and probably do a review for you on that too.
So we'll see you guys in some of these future videos. Like and subscribe.